I think what I want to start with is so PCB, right? PCB is a new thing for me. I've definitely seen PCBs before, but I think at the level that I'm looking at now, especially just looking from your Twitter page, which again at blind underscore via, it it seems like there's a sorry, not resurgence. It seems that there's a surgence because for myself, I'm only just getting into software, everyone that's in software that I'm looking to learn from and to find out what the next thing is and what's going on, all of them are talking about hardware. So I kind of want to start with this PCB thing. So for someone that doesn't understand PCB, that someone that's just a computer user, maybe not even a technical software, what's a PCB and why does it matter? Why are these things important?
A PCB is a complicated wiring harness that connects all the components inside your electronic device. And it's more than that because it's also the physical structure in which they all sit. Um, so it is the interconnector of all of the parts of the electronics.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so it seems, I know it seems like a simple thing, right? But for someone that doesn't really understand, where is this compute coming from, right? Like we're all using all this AI stuff, and there's so much demand nowadays. Is that I think we need to understand, us as the users, we need to understand how this stuff is made. So and again, you please correct me here because my knowledge on yourself is just from kind of seeing what you post on X. So I can't say that I have a very clear understanding, but you have mentioned on that you're a PCB designer. What are the different layers of folks that deal with PCBs? Is it just PCB designer and that's it, or are there other roles of people that make PCBs or work with PCB?
There are many other roles. Um, the electrical design begins at the electrical engineer who drafts the schematic, as he designs the system. Maybe he plans the software for it, like some do, or he's got a team or another person that does the software, depending upon the environment. That can be the one role, or there can be multiple roles. There's different layers of the engineering side. Uh, there's the mechanical engineer that works with the electrical engineers and other depending on what you're designing, other engineers to define what the actual shape and area that is available for the PCB, that influence that feeds into. Those are the engineering inputs that are received, among others that come up depending upon what you're making. Like if you're going into a certain environment, you have to consider your environmental variables. But there are other roles besides myself, the PCB designer, or some would say PCB drafter. Uh, there are PCB librarians, people who focus on just the footprints of themselves. So you have in PCB design, you have all the parts, right? You have all the parts interconnected, and the part is the actual physical component. But what we call the region inside the board that is the place where it connects to that part, you call that the footprint. And there are some people whose their entire role to make the footprints for the parts. There are some people who send their entire role to study just the parts themselves, the component engineers who will study obsolescence and environmental requirements for like automotive. If you're doing automotive design, you're going to have the need to have automotive specific parts for that particular class. And if you're doing something for space application, you'll want space specific parts that are rated for space application. So the component engineer will assess the life of the product and determine obsolescence, determine the environmental options, and determine maybe other risks associated with where it comes from, or that things that I'm not that's not my dedicated role, but these are the kinds of things that they have to think about all the time, and I get a taste of that when I'm doing something by myself. Uh, You know, sometimes when you're the only guy wearing the one hat, you are the component engineer, and you are the librarian, and you are the electrical engineer, and that's all in one. But it goes further downstream. There's the manufacturing engineers who operate the equipment that take your boards and your parts and combine them, and they're planning the process. They're engineering the way, going from we receive boards and parts, we got to program this machine and get it run and actually finish and build it. Let's see, can I go on? There's probably more roles I could pick out of my head.
Yeah, there's 100, but now I have 100 questions, 100 directions that I want to go in. So one question, and this is gonna be this is a tricky question because it's coming from myself as you know what I refer to as a normie, and asking you, but how come someone like myself who has always followed tech? So I followed tech from a perspective of like PC gaming. I followed in terms of like all the Magnificent Seven and all the big companies. Why? And I'd like to think of myself as someone that's a little bit more than average in the know about tech. Why have I never heard about PCB? Why is this something that isn't? Because I think it's cool and I think it's amazing. Like I bought a few Arduinos. I'm playing with it.
I
Uh,
don't know. That's a
why?
good question. Have you never taken apart electronics for fun? Because you got to say, that's going to be where my first experience of knowing what a PCB is, maybe not understanding it the way that I do now, but, you know, younger me opening up computers or putting together computers or opening up, something that's broken just to see what's inside. And you see this little tiny green thing, and they're usually green. And, so that becomes iconic in that coloration and pattern and look. Just by seeing it inside, not even knowing what it is, it becomes iconic.
What a question. Okay, so you stunned me because I have actually. So I have a video on YouTube back like 20 years ago when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. They had an issue with my PS3. It bricked or something, and I went to the Sony store to try to fix it, and they told me like $200. I was like, no, I can't. That's too much money. And I went home and I like opened it apart, search videos on YouTube or on Google, and I figured something out. It's just a little piece that just needed to be moved around, and it worked. So I remember seeing, and you're right, the green. So I remember seeing it, but I guess I never had to come across the actual, and I'm assuming there's got to be PCB in the PlayStation, right? Like that's an obvious thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, every electronic device that you've ever had or owned probably has a PCB in it. There's a few exceptions to that. You can get away with some really basic stuff that don't have them, but not very many.
Right. And I'm even thinking of I think the I don't know what they're called. This was what I'm trying to think back in my childhood of a console that had little carts. That was the actual game. It was like a cartridge. I don't know what game that was. I was super young then, so I'm trying to think. And I remember taking those apart, and they had. I'm pretty sure that was a PCB that was in there, but
Nintendo and I think Super Nintendo,
yeah,
and I don't
it
for
was
sure
definitely
like
one of
Sega.
those.
Those are all those game cartridges have PCBs inside them. Yeah, I think I have one right here. Here's a
There
Nintendo
you
game
go.
card.
There you go. Exactly.
PCB.
Exactly. And then RAMs too. Like you mentioning green. Like I used to be as a kid. I used to be obsessed with RAM. I think my first intro to like computers back when I was like, in my early teens was you need more RAM. RAM was like is what made the computer. That's what I used to think of as like a super good computer has a RAM. Okay, yeah, okay. So that question, I guess, was more kind of going back into my own memory and triggering that out. But I think with the AI revolution and everything that's happening now, I kind of want to go and ask you a little bit about the history and where in your history, the history of PCB, and where we're at now with AI. Do you see a resurgence in PCB design? Do you think there's going to be any improvement from AI? Do you think there's going to be anything that's a value that's going to come from AI with PCB? Because I'm seeing a lot of folks talk about AI isn't really going to do much for PCB at this point. I want to get your thoughts on that. If you've played around with it or if you have any thoughts on that.
I have not played around with it, but I mean, not in a large sense. But I am paying attention and seeing what people are doing, and the most value, like in terms of today versus tomorrow. Let's start today. Today, the value is very low. Today, the value is an educational value to teach you about electronics just by asking questions like you would a person. What's Ohm's law? How does, these timers work? And it can help you explain or help you find ways to learn those things. That's great. AI is pretty good at helping you learn things you want to learn just by talking to it.
Right.
It also appears to, there's a lot of people that are trying to use it to make new auto routers, which feels like a very futile effort because most of them are very bad. They seem to have no idea what an auto router should be. Because we have auto routers, we've had them for decades.
Right.
And most of the ones that we already have are better than the ones that they're releasing today using AI models to train or whatever. So that's not going very, very fast because they don't have the right idea. They don't have the right starting point. They don't know what it needs to be. They don't know what it already is. They don't know what it already can do. And they're trying to hit a bar, but they're falling very short on the auto routing. Tomorrow, maybe that'll change. Maybe they can get a better idea of the baseline and do better from there. That could be a thing in the future. But right now, auto routing is just not very good in my opinion. The thing that does seem to be of fair value right now is the librarian function. They seem to be doing pretty good with being able to feed a data sheet into models and get back footprints very fast and easy. And that has value in the now, because that can be a very tedious function. Like I said, there's a whole role dedicated to librarian because of the amount of effort involved there. So that has use. I don't know how good those are. I haven't played with them very much, but people have been sharing them online, and it's on the list of AI stuff to try when I get a chance to sit down and dive deep without distractions.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome, and sorry, I apologize because I'm going all over the place. It's just because these are things that I find like I have such a huge hunger for knowing and understanding from a perspective of an expert and someone that knows. But I kind of want to go back a little bit into into the economics of PCB from your perspective, like as much as you know, and again, North America, Europe, everywhere. Where is the money? Is there money in PCB designing? Is there a lot of money in PCB designing? Has there been a slowdown in PCB designing? Is there, because I know from what I've heard, China is I think a big player, or maybe the biggest player in PCB designing and even manufacturing. I just want to get your thoughts on that. I'm kind of throwing it out there, but just want to get your thoughts on what are the economics of PCB design.
The economics, in terms of, it sounds like you're asking pay rate, basically. Is it pay well to do PCB design? Kind of.
No, I meant more so.
Money is right. Money is in doing it and earning pay for it. Or is there some other context that you?
Sorry, yeah. Maybe I should have asked that question a little more clearly. I mean, where is the money being invested into PCB design? Like, where is it concentrated? Like, is there a huge demand for PCB designers in North America? Is there a huge demand in Europe? Is there a huge demand in China or Japan or anywhere else? Based on your maybe industry knowledge, where is that? Because I know nothing about it. Like, I don't know where is the money allocated for PCB design? Where is it focused?
Okay, well, I'm not sure that I have a very clear picture on what the jobs market for PCB design is in other countries. I live in the United States,
right?
And so I don't know what the jobs market for PCB design is in Canada. And usually the way I see that is translated through demand. This is my career. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and so it's the thing that I look for when I go looking for jobs, right? It's the thing that it's the kinds of jobs that are available for this market that are uh, very specific in this country, at least, to certain areas in terms of the amount of jobs that are available in that area, in that category. Whereas there's much less in the commercial market, and so I would suspect that means that those commercial market jobs are offshored somewhere else.
Right.
As but I don't know exactly which countries are concentrated them at. I suspect Europe's in a very similar place as us. I suspect Canada is in a very similar place as us, and so those market position jobs are weaker in that sense in those countries. But in the United States, there's a very strong demand for aerospace and space and government contract work that fuels a lot of demand, at least here. And I don't know if those are similar forcing functions that exist in Canada and Europe.
Right. No.
But those things drive heavy demand. There's a huge demand in the United States for PCB design because there's always a lot of engineering that goes on here, for a lot of different applications. And every time you're designing something new or developing something new, you're usually designing a customized PCB that goes with that device in order to perform that unique function that no other device can do.
Right. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. It's definitely.
I would like to add, though,
yeah.
Also, in terms of where the money is, the PCB design pay grade is below electrical engineering pay grade, which is below a software pay grade.
Right.
And so most of the talent has gravitated to the software. And the people who are here doing PCB design and electrical engineering are probably still here because it's something we'd like to do more than we want to get paid for, because a lot of us can do the software if we wanted.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Do you think it's purely just the pay that drives the talent to software engineering and even electrical engineering compared to PCB design?
In all cases, no. I know there's some people that just think software is better or like software, but like in my experience on Twitter, I get dozens of people telling me they trained to be electrical engineers but took a software job because it paid better. And I hear that all the time. It's this nostalgia. Oh, I could have been designing these PCBs, and so they're interested. And there's a lot of people who are just software guys that, like you say, who are wanting to get into hardware or interested. So there's this deep connection of interest between software and PCBs right now that is very hot.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I ran into it, right? And I'm fresh new. Like think of me as a high school kid who just found out about this stuff, and I just gravitated towards PCB with knowing nothing previously about it, or maybe just relatively heard. And then what about yourself? How come you didn't go through that pipeline of software engineering, or maybe you did? I don't know if that was your experience, and maybe you came back. What's your sort of journey with PCB design? Were you always PCB design in your professional career, or did you have maybe some stops along the way?
Career path choice was probably hardened in high school when taking courses for electronics and software at the same time. I took a C++ course in high school and electrical class, and bad experience with the teacher. It definitely discouraged me from being very interested in pursuing that direction. Do I want to tell that story? I don't know.
It's up to you. It's up to you. I don't wanna pressure you, but I definitely relate to that. I think any person that's like a teacher that's introducing you to a new domain makes or breaks whatever you feel about that domain. Absolutely. I can definitely relate to that in all of my experiences. That a lot of things I've taken a lot more positively or been open to the topic, just because the individual, whether it was a teacher or a friend or a mentor, whatever there was, because of my experience with them, I carried that same feeling and energy towards the topic and domain. I absolutely, and can relate to that. But I'll hinder. Do you want to tell that story, or do you want to move on?
Let's just say there was an assignment in the class that uh, was expected to be done a certain way, and I found a different way to do it.
Mm.
And because I didn't use the prescribed method, uh, the teacher was upset with me. And there was a student who was a friend of mine who, we shared notes, talked in class, worked together, kind of thing, who learned my non-prescribed method and used it as well in his own way.
Okay.
And he got accused of cheating.
Interesting.
And I think I think that he at first he got a bad grade, and then he apologized later and changed that. But it was a very bad experience.
Right. Okay, no, okay. So I guess just the one teacher, I guess created blind via, right? The fact that you went down this path, and maybe it's a good thing.
That was just a choice between code or electronics, and I went to college for a couple of years to try to become an electrical engineer, and ended up dropping out for personal reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Went straight into the field as a assembler technician, and eventually gravitated to design because the opportunity appeared, and that's when things really felt homey, like I felt inspired by what I was doing, because I was suddenly learning what those little tiny green boards inside my Game Boy were and how they work. And that was gratifying.
That's awesome. I like that story. It's a good story. And have you found, because I do feel in a way you've sort of become a teacher, right? It's just sort of watching you on Twitter. I don't know what your in-person experiences are, but definitely through Twitter I definitely see you as a teacher of the folks that are trying to learn and get better at PCB design. Do you ever feel as a teacher maybe you've made some mistakes, maybe those same mistakes that teacher did with you, where they prescribed a certain path of finding a solution, and maybe you're set in your ways? Have you found any opportunities like that for yourself as a teacher?
Not yet. I mean, this is a very new thing, very new role that I am serving as this sort of teacher, PCB teacher, online. And I have certainly learned the some of the detraction, what some people don't like, about me. And a lot of that comes from the some of the more like the electrical engineers that, I'm not an electrical engineer, but some of the electrical engineers want to see the kind of level of education that befits an electrical engineer, as opposed to the basic knowledge that I want to bestow about PCB design, that is my world, and how sometimes what I want to teach isn't they want to teach. I want to teach a basic level. They want to make you drink from a fire hose so that you can learn everything there is about that one thing at first. And that's not how you teach people. People who want to learn don't want you to shove everything down their throat at first. They want to be able to learn little bits that can be interesting and feel like they've learned something. If you if you force too much on them, they're going to lose a lot of what you told them.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely me. I definitely need some compartmentalizing of information whenever I'm learning something. Interesting. So I get this feeling that you deeply care about the new generation, because I see you speak a lot about how I think I saw one of your tweets recently, and I'm just sort of summarizing here, but you were saying where the new generation needs to make sure that they're learning from, especially in PCB design and electrical engineer, there are things you guys know that you can pass on to them. But I guess this isn't really a question, but I just kind of want to open the conversation for you. Is you strike me as someone who's very knowledgeable in PCB design, and you definitely care about the new generation learning as well. I've found in my domain and different domains that the folks that are, I would say, a bit higher up, not that they don't care. I think everyone cares. I don't think that they don't care. I just find that you seem to be a lot more soft toward the new generation. Is that a fair assessment, or is that something that you feel like maybe I'm just picking up incorrectly?
I mean, that kind of describes the scenario that I just uh, experienced, somewhat recently in terms of like the ones that want to teach PCB design, but they have this big subset of knowledge, and they feel like all of it must be passed at once, and I just know that that's not realistic.
Right.
So, this I call this I have a name for this. It's foundational learning. If you're trying to teach someone something and they don't have any pre-existing knowledge of the subject, there's not as much surface area for the new information to stick to. So if you're starting with if you're throwing a bunch of sticky clumps at a target, and you have a small target, some sticky clumps will stick to it, but a whole bunch are going to miss. Whereas if you have a slightly larger target and you're bombarding it with lots of sticky clumps, more clumps will stick because there's a larger surface area. And this is how I see and experience learning myself. Because when I'm trying to learn something, if I have a very low level understanding of it, I can add to that basic understanding. But if I have a larger understanding, I can take that information for a lot longer and still retain more of it. Whereas I can see how much my retention is nothing when I don't have that foundation.
Interesting.
It could be, it doesn't have to be specific foundation. It can be a little bit of knowledge about traces, a little bit of knowledge about parts, a little bit of knowledge about your board outline. Wherever you're coming from, we all learn differently. And so this is the idea that whether your foundation is the same as the other next person next to you doesn't matter, but knowing where you are to start helps to guide you in the beginning. And so I'm usually interested in understanding people's background and why they're interested before trying to engage with them.
I love it. That's so refreshing. From hearing an expert speak in this way is very refreshing, because I do find that experts, especially in my experience, a lot of time get frustrated with you, which to me it's normal, part of the process, and I definitely understand it, because I can see that I'm not understanding something, and then I hear this person who is very clearly an expert at it, and they're telling me, I'm like, I don't see it. I hear you, you're explaining it to me, I just don't see it. And the example you just gave is that I have a smaller frame. The frame of amount of information that I can retain and things that I can learn. I need time, right? And I guess time heals all those wounds. But I wanted to ask you, as you were speaking, I wanted to ask you, what's something that you're learning right now that's completely different or new to you?
Different. Well, I am learning more of the, my experience on Twitter has been mutually productive, symbiotic. I mean, it's been positive for me as well, in that there's a lot of people to talk to, and I've been learning a lot about the engineering that I didn't finish learning in school. So I'm being able to further my education by engaging with people for fun, and that's really cool. That's not new though, because I mean it is new, but it's adjacent. Right. So I think you're reaching for something that's a little more out of my comfort zone. So let me think.
Because I want to get Blind Via's perspective on learning something that you have no foundation on. It's okay if there's nothing right now. Maybe you're just one of those folks that you love your domain and you're trying to make it bigger, and that's perfectly fine.
Right now, I'm needing to get into YouTube. There are people that are pushing that want me to start posting YouTube videos.
Yes, please, please.
And there's a barrier there because I have an vision, an idea of what I would want that to look like, and I know that I don't have all the editing skills and the graphical skills to do the stuff that I would want to create. Okay. And so I'm trying to find a path forward there. And it's slow going because it's hard to make time for that. Yeah. Hard to make time for it, but it's in my mind and it's in the future. But it's kind of a barrier. There's this low level of knowledge about graphics, graphical creation and editing. I want to learn to learn Blender or learn something where I can generate my own graphics. And if I don't go that way, I'll find a team with somebody who helps me work on it. But either way, those are new areas. Being collabing or learning to do it myself in this kind of way. Also, this is a kind of a top secret, but I'm learning what it takes to make a plushie.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Interesting. I don't have the single first clue on how to do that. That's amazing. How did that come about? Is that something that came about?
I decided I wanted to make some merch. Ooh, and I saw posts about a plushie coaxial, and there's a guy that's got a plushie oscilloscope, and I'm like, I want to make a plushie about a PCB.
Yes, that's such a good idea. I would buy that. That's awesome.
So it's in the works.
Love it.
Not ready yet.
Love it.
Soon.
Yes. So both these things.
Top secret though. I haven't announced it on the Twitter platform, and I won't until it's ready.
Okay.
You get an exclusive on that.
That's amazing. Look, both YouTube and this plushie idea and merch in general, I think are such great ideas. Like, look, if I hadn't gone on X, so let me tell you a little bit about why I was on X. So I'm part of an organization where we do professional events. I've been part of it for 2 years now, and our flagship event, our last one, which was last year, had 800 attendees, and it's about bringing people, engineers and tech folks together, and we're gonna do an expo this year, and et cetera, et cetera. So I go on X to kind of find different speakers and different folks who are working on things to find, but someone like yourself, I don't think I would have found anywhere else but on X. And there are people that, I'm sure do PCB design and things of that nature on YouTube and on TikTok, etc. There's something about X, and again, this has nothing to do with how I feel about X or Elon or whatever. It's just my experience has been so pure. And I know there are things on X that aren't great, and that there's all kinds of individuals, but my experience and the way that I was exposed to you for me, it was such a natural thing where I'm like, oh, what's this guy doing? Like, he's posting this stuff, he's talking about stuff that doesn't really make sense to me, but I kind of know what he's talking about, and I want to know more. It's like it like touched this feeling inside of me to like get more information. And I think there's probably it's probably because on YouTube and on other platforms there's a lack of authenticity. I don't know, it sounds a bit corny to say, but that's really what it feels like. There's a lack of authenticity and value from people. So I think a YouTube channel sharing what you do, I mean, I don't know how you envision it, but like for me, I would love to have like a POV. Like if I can just see what you're doing and how you're doing that, like be a fly on the wall, I think that would be an amazing YouTube channel for sure.
I guess I'll start by commenting that there's certainly plenty of toxic sludge in the Twitterosphere, that's for sure. And it seems to be that the ability to gain access to the fly on the wall perspective, or the what appears to be many engineering folks that seem to congregate on Twitter, once you start engaging in the right places, the algorithm pushes you in the way you want to go. But if if you allow the rage bait to, well, if you allow yourself to engage with the rage bait, then you're lost in the toxic forever.
Yeah.
It never has a way to filter you out to where you want to be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I found that I have to be very intentional and specific about what I like and interact with, because it'll just bring whatever I'm interacting with 10x fold to me. So it's almost like I have to wake up, and compared to every other platform on X, I got to be careful on what I'm looking at and what I'm reviewing, because I'm like, I don't want to see this thing. Like, it came up once, it kind of piqued my interest, but no, I don't want this. This isn't the kind of thing that I'm interested in, and it takes like an effort.
It's interesting too, because I think there's specific groups that are better than others, and there's different levels of toxic rage bait that apply in even the good places, because it's just it works on the algorithm. People like to use that for the algorithmic purposes. But before I started getting interconnected with the electronics community on Twitter, I originally started posting about 3D printing and trying to be involved in the space related categories, and had very bad experiences with both of them in terms of the toxic level of engagement in those specific communities. And that was very unfortunate to me, because I really love 3D printing. I really love talking about space technology and space travel. And but I found that attempting to engage with those groups was a failure, and somehow this one was a winner.
Interesting. What do you think that is? Do you think it's just the particular individuals that just congregate on X in 3D print? And I don't want to focus on 3D printing, but just in general, because that's really interesting. That's really interesting that you found. Because for me, I've only been in two sort of groups: the software engineer and kind of the PCB design, maybe electrical engineer as well a little bit. And those two domains to me have been, chef's kiss in terms of the individuals that I've seen. And I wanted to say as well, like for you, I think one thing that stands out for me with the way that you post and what you share, there seems to be a very like not genuine. There's a different word. Like it seems like you're not, and this is gonna sound a bit like kissing ass, but it seems like you're not really reaching for engagement. It seems like you're not really reaching for like just trying to get people to listen to you for the sake of listening to you. It seems like you're very intentional about saying exactly what you deem to be of value. And I think I that resonated with me. It resonated with me, someone that's a complete non-technical in your field of work, but it attracted me. I'm like, oh, interesting. It kind of removed that veil that you said, like of something that's just seemingly being impossible to even attempt to think of. Oh, this is something I can look into and get interested in. And then you're mentioning that in other places, and honestly with 3D printing I haven't really seen anything, but that's actually a perfect segue for me, because I wanted to ask you as well. 3D printing, is that something that you sort of gravitate towards as a supplement for PCB design, or is that something completely else that you use it for, that you do with 3D printing?
Well, both. It PCB design and prototyping engineering in general is what got me into 3D printing. I learned about it and thought it was interesting, but the value it had for prototyping and engineering was just absolutely worth the entry cost to try to getting in there. Because my first 3D printer was $400, $500, something like that, and that was a pretty good price at the time. It was not a great deal in general, because it had like locked in software and I had to jailbreak it to make it useful, unfortunately. But yeah, the engineering, PCB design, and doing PCB design, I did a lot of prototypes where it's the first one of this board ever, and it's never been made before. So we wanted to put it inside this housing, and we we don't know for sure that it's going to fit. Let's print one real quick, the shape and size with the components and how it would fit. And let's stick it in there and see if it fits. This is what we call height analysis, skyline analysis of the components on the board, so that we know that they're not going to be bumping into anything nearby. It was also useful to, build custom holders for the boards so that we could use it as tooling. There's certain connectors that get pressed into the holes instead of soldered, called press fit connectors, and they need a very strong, sturdy underlying structure to sit on while it's getting pressed. And we would pay hundreds of dollars to machine custom blocks that would go underneath for pressing. And I'm like, guys, I could make that for $2 with my 3D printer and have it for you in the same day. And so we started doing, using it for stuff like that. And ironically, I couldn't convince my boss that the printer was worth it, so I had to buy it myself and prove that it was worth it. When I left, he got his own 3D printer.
Okay, but I'm assuming that you proved that it was worth it, right? That's what that value was.
I that's if he replaced it when I took it away, he definitely proved that it was worth it because he was willing to pay for it on his own.
Interesting. Why do you think? Because it seems like a common theme is coming up, and honestly, I see this in my line of work as well. Is why do you think that there seems to be a barrier with individuals, especially when they're in a position of power, or to make the decision, both maybe with the teacher, with the your new method of doing things, and then again in this previous workplace that you had. What do you think the challenge was there from these individuals to see, like you had the proof, right? That the proof was in the pudding, or I guess they didn't want to take that chance beforehand. I guess in your scenario, right? Because you're sort of
it's a risk. Yeah, you're like you say, they don't want to take the chance. It's a risk. They don't. Well, maybe not for the teaching, but in terms of the business, for trying something new, it's a capital investment to buy the machine and the chance that it might not work out what you wanted it to do for. And so, without any way to be convinced that that justification of change of extra cost that might be a waste is hard to justify for them.
Yeah, I guess it is. That's exactly what it is. It's just a sense of risk.
I feel like there was also, a slight barrier of technical knowledge versus non-technical management that creates a challenge as well in this case, because, if there's a reason why I know this has value, even if I explain it to him, he might not understand what I'm saying.
Right. What do you think about that? What do you think about non-technical management versus technical management? Which one do you prefer? Do you see values in both? Do you see disadvantages in both?
There are advantages and disadvantages in both. There's because managers are trained in school to do things different, to do things from the business perspective, from we're doing this for the sake of this value, for this bottom line, or for a different reason that we can't see from a technical perspective. And so as a technical person in a managing role, I might be a bad manager because I don't know what managers are supposed to do, but I'll be a very good lead to the technical people who are underneath me, understanding exactly what they have to do and being able to guide them with authority that can make decisions that help them. So, there's advantages and disadvantages to having that technical knowledge in that managing role, for sure. And I think most of the disadvantages of having a technical person in that role is the lack of knowledge from business, right. Just like schooling.
And if I can ask you, just as a sort of thought experiment, what do you think that a manager, that's an expert in management, what would they know that a technical individual can't learn or wouldn't understand just by way of, this is what's necessary, this is what is needed, right? It comes, so I'm a manager, but I'm definitely from the perspective of I need to learn this thing. So I've been in roles, and I'm currently in a role where I didn't get there by sort of getting a promotion from the technical perspective up. I came there from other direction, but I cannot. This is my own belief, right? Which isn't very common among my peers. Is I need to understand I would say at an entry level, the technical aspect of it. Like I need to be able to do the work that a technical individual is doing poorly, but I need to be able to at least complete it. At least complete it and with a passing grade.
That would be to your advantage to have that ability. I think that's pretty critical, and why most managers who are not technical struggle, because they don't bother to do that. If you don't bother to learn the job the people that you're guiding is doing, or at least understand it on uh, in in the way that they understand it, then you're not going to be very effective at helping them solve problems, or helping bottlenecks or time schedules, or uh, work out the problems that are happening within the company, because you're going to have problems in the company, and it's the manager's job to say, we got a problem over here with these people, they're not getting along, or this is going too slow, this has got to go faster, or that kind of thing. That's the role of the manager, is to see things from the top down, and identify where the problems are, and see, are we doing things well, or could we be doing them better.
Yeah, because I actually arrived to this. I arrived at this conclusion that I have to learn this way when I was having conversations about opportunities and things that we can fix, etc. And when the tech individual were sharing with me where their gaps were, I had no idea what they were telling me. I didn't know what they were saying. I had no idea. Like I knew roughly, but I still couldn't make the connection. I was like, okay, I need to do the work for myself. I need to just
All the stickies are not sticking.
exactly. So I had to literally just take and the way that I did it is I would take their already finished work and just reverse engineer and then try to do it again, and then kind of repeat that, and then try a brand new problem or a case completely by myself, and then I would fail. I'm like, oh, like how does this work? Because there are certain opportunities that I think management tries to address that are unmanageable. There are just some things that can't be fixed, at least not with the current setup,
Yeah.
not with the current technology, not with the current whatever X industry. There are things that just can't, and for some reason managers always take those as challenges. No, you're the one that's being closed-minded, and that can't be
Some
fixed.
managers think, oh, we have a problem, we had a problem, and so now that we had a problem, let's take a look at this problem and see what we can do to prevent this problem from ever happening again. And sometimes that's just not realistic, to be like, I'm going to stop ever being a problem ever again. No, maybe you can make it a little better, or you know, and maybe sometimes that's true. Maybe you can stop it, but the mindset that you could always do that is not always true.
It's not.
And being able to make the judgment call of what can we improve and what can we not improve is a problem. Because when you decide, okay, we're going to try to make this better, and you're going to spend lots of their time and your time working to make it better, when they very well know that we're wasting time, because this is going to be endemic in what we're doing.
Yeah, and
In
sometimes
engineering, there's all the time we have things that we don't know, and if they try to narrow out those things that we don't know as a way of like, that's not going to happen. You're not if things are going to come up that we can't predict in engineering, and you cannot micromanage that out of the process. You can't.
well, because you can't. I don't think you can manage human like decision making, right? Like sometimes you're gonna have to make decisions, and all the decisions will lead to a non-optimal outcome. And the way that I've dealt with this, with my team members is, I kind of I leave it up to them to make as many mistakes as possible until it gets to a point where like me having to now step in and do something about it is completely. Even they would come to me like, hey, like I don't know what I'm doing here, like I need some assistance. And I think that's the only way. And yeah, I'm putting my job at risk, right? Because my manager and my my directors are going to come to me and say, hey, what's going on, like how come this thing is happening multiple times? And I think that's what a manager needs to manage, is now I need to explain to them that, hey, I have to give them the opportunity to fail. I can't avoid them failing. That's how they're trying to do things. That's how we're trying to improve and try to get to that next level, is they have to. And for me, the golden rule is like 3 times. I let someone fail 3 times, again with a short amount of time, before I even step in and try to help. Without going in too much depth in that sense, how would you feel if you had like an AI manager? do you think that's even a possibility? Do you think that that would even work out? Do you think that's a thing that can work out for you in the future? And maybe let me lay out the scenario a little bit here, because maybe saying AI manager isn't really saying much. But what if it's an AI manager that's guided and harnessed by the principles of exactly what a job description of a manager does say, and it goes strictly on whatever decision making that you're doing, and it's using those to kind of guide you in the right direction, or managing you. Do you
I
think that
think
would
it sounds
work?
like a disaster.
What's that?
I think it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, as I was saying it too, I was like, yeah, this is never gonna work ever. I think there's just some things
I think
humans.
I think the function of AI is going to be the tool and not the leadership. It cannot be the leadership. That's a disaster. If that's actually being talked about in, like, the business world of AI developers, I know that they talked about, AI can do everything. It can be a doctor, it can be a lawyer, it can be, it can write code, it can be a receptionist, it can do all these things. And I guess manager is sort of within that fold, but that seems much worse than the work that's being done, leading people who are doing the work. I I could see managers using management AI,
Right.
but I cannot see AI being the manager.
Being the manager. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. And it will be. I don't see any way that it's not going to be a disaster. Um, I want to take a different route here. Uh, Again, you just going back to PCB design and learning and everything that's coming you. Do you see an increase in interest in PCB design as these software engineering tools become more and more available? Do you think that the software engineers will now have more time to focus on PCB design? When I say focus, let me clarify that, because I know you mentioned that there are some folks that like electrical engineering and PCB design, but because maybe the money and the way that the focus in the industry, in the tech industry, has been in the software. Now the software is becoming a lot more easily manageable. Do you think we're going to see maybe like a overflow effect into PCB design, that people are like, look, I know my software, I know what I'm doing, I need the hardware to sort of respond to that, and here's how that's going to work? Do you see a connection happening with that in the future?
I see a growing interest now based on my experience with people, and that growing interest, I think, is responsible for creating what I've become on Twitter. But um, but I also think that the interest is largely focused as a subset. I need to do PCB. I want to learn PCB design because I want to make this, or but that's their passion. That's what they're focused on. They just need it as a tool, as a skill. There doesn't seem to be a rise in demand for PCB designers like myself that do only PCB design as a career. And um, I'm trying to mingle with those who are interested in PCB design in general,
Yeah.
to see if there are any out there that are like that just want to learn design for design, and they're not trying to learn it for a specific goal. But that's where I see it trending. And with tools, with the software that we have that allows us to do PCB design on the computer digitally, that is making it more accessible to people who don't do it permanently. Because it used to be that, before computers, there was rooms full of drafting tables where PCB designers would draw the circuitry out by hand with tape and with um, Mylar sheets, and it was a very manual process without computers. And I think that was probably the prime of the PCB designer, PCB drafter, uh, because the tools and the software that are around now enable engineers to do their own PCB designs, and enable software guys to do their own PCB designs. And a mechanical engineer, anybody who's needing to do it for like their project, can learn enough about it to do a design of their own, without the years of trade experience that I had to go through to have a full picture, because they're not going to have the full picture. They're just going to see their little board and what they're trying to make. They're not going to consider the how the board was made. They're not going to consider how it's going to be assembled, and the things that the manufacturings will require to include in the PCB for that to still work out. And so what that means to me is there's going to be a reduction in quality of PCBs with this surge of demand and availability, because people can now design boards without having to know the kinds of the manufacturing details and how to plan for the manufacturing. In the industry, we call that design for manufacturing. And that's going to go to the wayside with all this new demand. The design for manufacturing is just dying on a hill.
Interesting. So I was reflecting on my own reasons for why I got interested in PCB, and it's just because it's that next level of thing that I wanted to learn, and most likely I'm going to move on to the next thing that PCB design introduced to me. So this kind of brings me back to, maybe I want to understand a little bit better, how come, or not how come, but why do you see value in PCB design? Why does Blind Via see value in just PCB design on its own, not just for manufacturing, or for that other tool, using it as a tool for that other goal? Why PCB design? It's a tough question. It's a tough question.
I kind of fell into it, and there was a time when I felt like I wanted to move away from it, do other things. And when I tried to do that, I felt like I had lost something of myself. And coming back to it was good for my mental health. So for me, I think it's because it's just so deeply baked into my brain that there's no getting rid of it. And to try to move against that baked in self would just makes me unhappy.
That's beautiful. That's poetic. I love that. I definitely that's something that I would love to find what that is for me. I don't think I'm still in search of that. I think definitely talking like this and having these chats with individuals like yourself is what I always fall back into. But that's beautiful. I'm definitely gonna have that written down somewhere, for sure. I think because we've definitely hit an hour, if my math is correct. And I kind of want to close it with a question, well, kind of with what we started. So if there's someone out there right now, especially a student or someone who's maybe rethinking their career, and they're dealing with a teacher, or a boss who's trying to shape them in the direction that the teacher or that boss wants, but they have different methods of doing things, and they really believe those methods are the correct methods of doing things, what would be your advice? What would be your insight to tell those individuals, about the next steps they should be taking in their either student life or academic life or professional life, if they come across those challenges?
Stand your ground. I mean, whether it's teacher or your boss, if you know you're right about something, don't be the yes man and falter what they say just because they say you got to do it this way. Do you?
Beautiful. I love it. Blind Via, it has been a pleasure. It has been an honor, and thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.